Greetings from rainy Ljubljana. For me, it is a true honor to be with you here today, with our esteemed panelists and with all participants coming worldwide. But before that, can I also give the word to Violeta, who was so kind that regardless of her situation, she joined to greet everybody. Violeta, please, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Andrea. It's a real pleasure to see you all here, and I know it's going to be an exceptional session today, seeing the diversity of experiences and really deep knowledge about the subject. I would just like to, which in April we will celebrate the 5th year of the existence. We're very proud to be able to bring together so many people from so many different countries. Currently, we are present in 51 countries around the world. But even more important is that Eco-Civilization Network is the network of people who care. The most simple and straightforward definition. And this is sort of a emerging field within which we observe the emergence across using the cross-pollination, using the participatory modeling, using the engagements, and trying to see and learn what it means to be a civilization, what ticks civilization. So far, we see that Western civilization, which has been dominating on this planet for a couple of centuries, we see that there is less and less inspiration. We wonder, is that people or structures or both? So we are ready here to challenge the fundamental pillars of society, fundamental beliefs that currently exist in the way how society should function. And that would explain why we just could not but challenge the concept of leadership. Because around the world, we see more and more leadership schools rising, more and more leadership courses and experts and trainings. But look around. We are destroying ourselves, our planet, our future, children, and we are far away from being proud ancestors of future generations. So it is of real importance, the messages that you will send out today. How do you see the leadership of the future? Where would you like to challenge it? And how can we go about together? So if I will have to switch off, which it's very likely is going to happen, I will definitely go back and listen very carefully to the entire session, make notes, and hopefully we'll get really another opportunity to engage further and see how can our dreams be manifested in a better way also in the field of leadership. Thank you, Andrea. And now I pass the whole session back to your safe hands.
Thank you, Violeta. And our thought, you're
Thank
able
you.
to be with us, but when you need to go, just go where you're the most important this time. So again, just to share or reiterate again, I am very honored also because this theme of the year, the Leadership Challenge, is co-created by different partners, the Eco-Civilization, me with the Kuntaum, but there are also Mar Itroini. I think that she's also today with us and that she would be able to join to say at the end something because she is co-creating the next event on this topic, and Leo Gordon. So all of us will create a series of the events where we will try to address the most pressing challenges or the aspects what is happening with the leadership. But today's topic And honestly, I don't know if there is a better reality that what we just faced today. I'm quite ill, I must say. I'm facing bronchitis. Our dear Sanchita, the key active listener today, is she's in hospital with her husband. So this is the reality of these days. And although these are the private stories, the external stories are not easier, even bigger, I would say, regarding to the geopolitical situation, regarding the economic challenges and ethical and the other civilization challenges that we are facing. But let's reassure from all of us here today that none of this affects our passion for today's discussion to challenge traditional leadership models, but to explore collective intelligence, ethical responsibility, and shared leadership. And this is not about rejecting the leadership, but it is about rethinking and redefining it to meet the needs of the current situation of the current planet. So allow me to guide you through this conversation. We have really an exceptional group of the panelists today with us who will challenge the different perspectives on leadership. The first is Professor Miha, Professor Dr. Miha Škerlavaj, Professor of Leadership and Organizational Behavior, School of Economics, University of Ljubljana, and BI, Norwegian Business School. With us is also Lord Blanchard-Brunac, Senior Advisor of Ruth Pedersen Public Affairs and Committee. Mitja Jermol from UNESCO, Chairholder for Open Technology for Open Education Resources and Open Learning. He is also part of the management team and a member of the IRCAI, International Research Center on AI, under the patronage of the UNESCO, and he's also a huge AI specialist. Further is from Serbia, Natasha Heror. She's country chair for Serbia for Eco-Civilization, but also president of the CSO Media Pond and the Eco-Civilization Serbia. She will share the topic together with Natalia Petrovic, that we are heartily welcoming. Natalia, you are far away the youngest participant today and part of the most sincere collective leadership movement that we can experience. That although you are the second-year student of the communication, you're also the part of the PR team of the FANS blockage in Serbia. Looking forward to hear your insights. And last but not least, Dr. Marina Demchenko, research leader from Oxford. She's from Living Cities Action Research Ecosystem and from the Living Care. And as mentioned at the beginning, after very intriguing discussion on our opening session, when we talk about the active listening mode, we decided to introduce this time one keynote active listener, and this is Sanchita Gariola. Welcome heartily again, Sanchita. So honored and humbled that you come today, although of your situation. Really a big expert on the sustainable management and governance. She's the co-founder and director of the Vision 360 Management Consulting, and your clients are one of the Fortune 500 companies. And you're a big specialist also on the public sector in India. So looking forward to hear the reflection from your expertise. Now, allow me to open our discussion. We have the privilege of hearing from Professor Dr. Miha Škerlavaj. He is one of the leading experts on the post-heroic leadership. His work challenges traditional leadership paradigms and brings values insights into how leadership is shifting from ego-driven, top-down models to collective and collaborative approaches. forward to hearing from your thoughts. Can leadership thrive without ego, titles, and hierarchy? You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Andrea. So I would like to maybe just express my gratitude and share my slides while doing that. So the gratitude for this opportunity to share, a few cents of my experience and knowledge and research and whatever we've been doing over a course of a quarter of a century, I guess. And by we, I'm also expressing the gratitude to all of my collaborators, and there have been many that have chipped into this piece of the puzzle that I would like to share with you today. I guess it goes beyond saying that, it's this out of its place, that this world really needs a lot of anything that we can contribute in terms of knowledge and even more so the change that will follow this knowledge. So why exactly leadership? Leadership has a multiplying effect, right? So every leader, the actions that we take, the actions that we don't take in this role will multiply in through the practices and the systems and experiences in and around organizations. Post-heroic leadership is basically a newer genre leadership type. So it's not alone in this space of trying to figure out better, smarter, healthier, more humane and sustainable ways of how we do what we do at work and around it. It is also a story that actually came out on surface through our conversations with leaders over the last 6 years or so through the national radio in Slovenia. And here I'm expressing also my gratitude to Anja Hlača-Ferjančič, the journalist at this radio. We've been having all sorts of conversations with very interesting groups of leaders from profit, non-profit, public, you name it, all sorts of environments where leadership is executed, right? And so this is sort of the starting ground. I'd like to start even, I'd like to backtrack even a bit further in the past, just for us to understand how much of the question, this idea of what successful leadership has been occupying our activities as leadership scholars and practitioners. And, throughout a series of more or less out what is successful leadership, we learned that there is basically nothing in common to successful leaders at the face value, that is, right? So here I'm referring to the work of Anthony Miha and Nitin Noria, two scholars from Harvard that have basically explored 1,000 leaders over 100 years time, and they figure out that these people vary in the way they do things, in the way they practice leadership, but they do have one thing in common, and that is their ability to understand the spirit of time. So their ability to understand so-called zeitgeist and their ability to address it as well. So allow me to share with you now the most recent global risk landscape. So a regular annual study that World Economic, and every year when they gather key decision makers, let's say from the world, they would try to estimate and check the pulse of these people by asking them what kind of risk factors do they observe, right? And here you will notice that on the right hand side we have this in a way a network diagram of 5 categories of factors, from economic in blue, environmental in green, geopolitical in orange, societal in red, and technological in purple. And what is on one hand worrisome and on the other probably somehow understood is that the green part has been shrinking over the course of years. People are most for the last year or two, they've been occupied in their perceptions topics like polarization, like decline in healthcare and well-being, inequality, and more, right? But the change in perception does not mean that the problems are going away. It just means that we don't have the cognitive or emotional capacity to see them in the way they are, right? So, in other words, Adam Tooze has popularized the idea of polycrisis and the permacrisis, and it became a mouthful, right? So a lot of people are actually at the stage where they are filtering out the information and trying to focus on their narrower worlds and or somehow survive through these very, very demanding times. So my message to you, ladies and gentlemen, here is that we do leadership for the kind of wicked problems we are facing. COVID was a very classical version where several societies that fared better than the others have dealt with it in a multidimensional space, and they have dealt with it also in a collaborative manner, as opposed to those that have treated it as a unidimensional problem and have also approached it in much more of a autocratic or let's say single dimensional way, to put it mildly. So, when we know that these wicked problems required better ways of leadership, and that post-heroic leadership is one of them, that is my suggestion to you. We should also try to understand where do the problems with leadership that we have arise from, and the list is really long, right? So already when we try to identify, we are wrong we tend to be wrong in many different ways. So, for instance, we overestimate, right? So Dunning-Kruger effect is one of the typical ways how we mix the overconfidence with competence, and knowing that there's this so-called Mount Stupid, so the initial at the level of very low levels of objective competence, there's this hump in overconfidence, and we get fooled by it. Then we know that we have it's not surprising to observe that we have actually some problem in identifying the right people for the job. We ascribe different leadership qualities based on totally irrelevant phenomena, such as the babbling effect. So people that tend to speak a lot are attributed wrongly, obviously. People that wave a lot have equal effect on the followers. On the other hand, we also underestimate introverts. It is also, part of the reason why some people would be even self-selecting themselves against entering leadership positions is also the very well-known imposter syndrome. So, a sense of constant inadequacy for this kind of responsible jobs. And it is also not surprising to learn that dark triad, so this deadly combination of narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellism among leaders is 6 times as present as it is in the general population. Now, I'm not saying that this is a general or that all the leaders are such. It's still a minority, but the problem is that if you just leave it to chance, you would get 6 times better the result. And it's not limited to leaders either, right? So any role in a human society that has a certain in-role power, such as professors, such as lawyers, such as doctors of medicine, and further on, they tend to have equal problem. Now, right. So if we know that ego is the enemy of the good leadership, and if we know that the prevalence of narcissism in the leadership population is 6 times as high as it is in the general population, the question is, what kind of leaders should we expect, right? And here I'm referring to a study that was done in 2020 and published in Harvard Business Review. And you see that we have quite a heavy set of expectations from our leaders, and these expectations are even somehow paradoxical, right? We would like our leaders to be humble but also to be heroes. We would like them to be executors but strategic. We'd like them to be technologically savvy but then also skilled as humanists, and so on, right? So my point is that this is really a lot to ask from one person, and it is rightfully so that all of these skills are actually needed in leadership teams, right? But I'm focusing on, or I'm emphasizing the word teams. So leadership should be much more shared and collective process as we tend to understand it in a traditional way. And when I was introducing this short and humble talk, a podcast and on our national radio. It's called With an Ear for Leadership, Vodenje s posluhom, has been going on since 2020. We had more than 30 conversations in 6 different seasons by now. And looking into those, analyzing these conversations that we are having, there's a pattern. All these people are absolutely reliant and acknowledging the contributions of the groups of people that they are co-creating with, and all these people also have matured to the level where their ego is not a hurdle anymore. So in the few minutes to come, I'd like to share with you a little bit more, in some more detail, what this idea of post-heroic leadership actually is, and I'd like to exemplify it with a couple of parts of the world, and hopefully this sparks also some discussion in the continuation of the webinar. So post-heroic leadership is a term that has been coined some time ago, a few decades ago, and it was somewhere hidden a little bit in some niche, narrow literature that became a little dusty. However, we can clearly see that parts of that idea have been proliferated in terms of research. So shared leadership and servant leadership has been extensively studied. Not in the combination, though. So post-heroic leadership is a combination of shared and servant leadership. It is not a laissez-faire leadership by none means whatsoever. So it's a proactive form of leadership. And even if I reflect back on the times where starting to face the COVID crisis, right? I kept hearing over and over again that crisis demands for autocratic leaders with solutions, right? And that turns out not to be the case. There's the famous study of Sargent and Stajkovic that has been observing U.S. and the states of United States and the governors there, and found that actually female-led countries had statistically significant lower excessive mortality rates. That study has been also replicated around the globe later on, and it has shown that let's say the leaders that have been able to practice leadership styles of newer genre have actually been saving lives. Yeah. So we have evidence, and this evidence is rather robust. Unfortunately, it took many lives to learn how expensive it is to practice outdated styles of leadership, to put it mildly. So if we know that, the question is, how is it that we can approach this set of complex tasks of present and the future in better forms of leadership? So servant dimension of leadership is, their more detailed sub-dimensions are listed here. So they range from anything from humility to caring for others. So I was really impressed to read how many people in the initial let's say presentation of this seminar and the community, how many of you actually have used the word care. So that is big part of the servant leadership. it's about guidance, and allow me to show you an example of what servant leadership is not, and I don't think that actually requires any further explanation, right? So mastering our ego, that is a trait of servant leadership that actually opens up space for other people's contributions. And here's an example of Ruth Gottesman, who gave $1 billion actually to to medical college of medical school actually in Bronx, and there was no big fuss about it. There was no major media coverage. Her only ask was that this money will be spent for the to unburden the future well, to unburden students of medical school their fees as they will be, serving the society at large later on. So it's a very quiet, very humble, very servant way of creating a huge wave in a broader society. So I find this to be an act of servant leadership. Another interesting, let's say, quote that came from Katalin Karikó, who was a co-receiver of the Nobel Prize for the mRNA, so the technology in the field of medicine that also contributed to the to solving basically the COVID crisis, to my humble understanding. So her quote was, right, observing the domain of science. Her quote is, if so many people who are in certain field would come together in a room and forget their names, their egos, their title, think they would come up with so many solutions for so many things. But all these titles and whatever get in the way. So, to address basically the domain in which I also contribute hopefully and participate, ego is a big part of the problem here, most certainly. So this is a colleague and a dear friend, also Damian Osredkar, head of the clinical department for child neurology. He's been one of the key contributors also in developing some innovative treatments in his domain of medicine. But when he entered the role of a leader, his comments were that he was basically naked and barefoot, and that he was not equipped for this job, even though he spent a lifetime in an expert. So how do we help professionals in this kind of roles grow post-heroic leadership competence? That's a question. You can see the emphasis on the servant nature or of the humble nature of the leadership also in other examples of the people that we have been in conversation with. You can see guidance and sense of purpose from conversations that we had with colleagues from Hooray Studios. So there, when they were discussing what is it that they would like to do, they said whatever, as long as it's is a force for good, right? So we can talk about the product, we can talk about the organization, we can talk about anything, but we are here to do something meaningful and helpful. And I think it's a good reminder what we are doing, why we are doing what we are doing also in these times. Dunkin' Devils is also a very interesting organization from our parts. They are several times world or holder of Guinness World Record for acrobatic dunking, and one of the practices through which they develop is so-called teasing with love. So they have decided that they will allow themselves to be a little on the edge in terms of how they provide feedback to each other, that they will be authentic as long as they know that this is well intended, right? So this kind of practice of co-creating is actually the one that is revealing opportunities to grow and to develop while also maintaining respect for each other. a big topic within the domain of post-heroic leadership, of course, is also a field of responsibility. We keep hearing that over and over again with conversations with leaders. We keep hearing also many of the dilemmas that they have with, with trouble for people to assume responsibility. So conformism is a incredibly strong force of human nature. So, this developing change agents, developing responsible leaders is a big topic, and I don't think we are nearly done with both research and practice in that domain. So I don't want to be too long. I don't want to, abuse your hospitality. So allow me just to end with 3 songs, as a matter of fact. So one by Bonnie Tyler, "I Need a Hero," is a metaphor of how we think our leaders should look like, right? So we are still somehow searching for this heroic figures that have all the answers and all the tools and will fix things for us. This is what we have, to much larger extent that we deserve and we should. So narcissism, Machiavellism, and even psychopathy. And this is, I think, the tune that we should whistle to each other. So with that, I would just like to again emphasize the need for better forms of leadership. Among them, post-heroic leadership as a combination of shared and servant is the one that I would dare to say has a potential to contribute. And I'd like to thank you for your attention. Look forward to a discussion that follows.
Miha, thank you very much. That was very impressive and to the point about the challenges that we are facing, not only in the business, but in all spheres of our lives, even in some countries inside of the families and the private life as well, because this is how we have been raised around the world. I would like to ask here Sanchita, because she is today the keynote active listener. Sanchita, how does that sound and how does that resonate with you, what Miha just presented to us? Sanchita?
1 second.
Okay.
I was on mute and I did not know about it. Well, first of all, thank you, Andrea, for this opportunity. You don't know what a big relief it is when you're 24 hours in this kind of a setup. I had to make up my mind if I should be an active listener here, because you need all kind of attention. But I am glad that you invited, and I still made up and I came here and heard Professor Miha. His thoughts on servant leadership truly resonated with me, especially when you're coming from a country as diverse as India, which is a world in itself, and especially this part of the world, when I interact with people, because I am a management and a sustainability consultant. I'm a woman entrepreneur. Why I'm saying woman, though I hate it, but this is what is most prevalent here. I have seen, the leadership styles changing, and this is one concept, servant leadership, which has been very, very close to my heart. And now I would like to throw more light on what I have seen here, what I have inculcated during this 15 years journey of mine as an entrepreneur in the leadership position, because I co-founded this organization of mine 15 years back. Here, what I feel, and with my interaction with the global clients, leadership in the age of disruption, it's a loaded phrase. It sounds like a Netflix series waiting to happen. Consultants usually are expected to be more sober and cliched, but I am a little different in the sense that I would like to be more rational, reasonable, what I have witnessed, and that's what I would like to put forth here. Let's break it down, the leadership style. For me, leadership today isn't about commanding from the front or shouting orders from the tallest tower. Especially this current generation is not going to take, your orders. It's about moving beyond the ego, embracing humility, and recognizing that the smartest person in the room might just be everyone else in the room. So I got away with my ego when I became an entrepreneur. And then, there are so many things coming on you over a period of time, then that you just lose everything, you become so humble. And this servant leadership actually gets imbibed in you over this period of time, no matter if you want it, perfectly fine, you want to become like that. So, as the co founder of this organization, where we tackle everything from net zero strategies to sustainability advocacy to government advocacy, which is so challenging here, I have learned that leadership isn't a solo act, it's a symphony. And trust me, I have started realizing that more during this 1.5 month when I've been away from my office and remotely managing things. I never thought that my team will stand up. From my practical experience I'm sharing, my team will stand up for me, for my husband, who is also the co-founder of the organization. So what happened was, entrepreneurs can't stop working. When this happened on 29th of January, he actually suffered brain stroke. My world came crashing down. And doing all kinds of formalities. My brain, my heart was also there because my organization is also my firstborn. So there's a lot of attachment with the people also. And after doing all kinds of formalities, I ran back to them. I was deeply shattered, was trying to control my emotions, but I knew that it was in vain. And I gathered few people and I told them that the reality that I don't know how the future will unfold. How will I get back to the active leadership role? How will Ranjan, my husband, will come back? Because uh, even when he starts getting better, the rehabilitation may take a couple of months. So I'll be, heading the organization completely. And in that time, I needed the support of these people. Not because of the changing moral and ethical values of the youngsters these days. I know there is a very, very young girl with us today, but it's not for all. But post-COVID, we've seen that the the expectations of the youngsters and us from the older generation. There is a slight mismatch, and somewhere we have to walk that extra mile to blend well. And this is precisely what happened. It's been 1.5 months, and I have been telling them things in the morning, at night, during the review calls, and it's happening. I won't say it is be perfect, but they have stood up. And trust me, symphonies can get a little messy when everyone thinks they are the conductor, and you know what I mean. But when to lead in their own way, the results can be astonishing. And I have seen that happening. I don't know how, again, the future will unfold, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Taking the idea of the post-heroic leadership, moving away from the lone superhero leader, which I do not want to be. Let's face it, the superhero hero model is outdated. That's what I have felt. Looking at the Avengers, they needed each other to save the world, right? So the same goes for leaders today. That's what I feel. Collaboration, shared responsibility, and empathy are no longer nice to haves. They're essentials. And in my organization, it's not today, but from the very first day that we created the setup, we wanted to be different. What happened? Policies where we have the shared responsibilities and a setup which is mutually respectful. And I think um, we are reaping the dividends right now, the same. And uh, we have embraced this. We sometimes, what happens is we sit together, um, and we try to figure out things that are pragmatic. And let's talk about the elephant in the boardroom, which is also disruption, which is happening, whether it's the climate change, economic uncertainty, which is there, when things like this, black swan events, we call it, like in our parlance, where one of the founders is down and out, and I am also not there, or even our traditional leadership models to their core. So the old playbook doesn't work anymore. But here's the secret: disruption isn't the enemy of leadership. It's proving ground. It's where real leaders stand up. That's what I want to be. May not be a real leader right now for my people or for my clients, but I am trying, not by controlling the chaos, but by embracing it, empowering others to find the path forward. And let's not forget the human element of leadership, which is empathy. With this, I would like to close because there are lots and lots of panelists right now. This isn't just a buzzword, it's a glue that holds organizations together in times of uncertainty. So, in my organization, we have tried to inculcate this particular thing, empathy, which isn't something we from empowering women in leadership roles to championing mental health in the workplace, we have made empathy the guiding principle of our leadership philosophy. And to sum it up, leadership today is about creating ecosystems, not empires. It's about enabling others to rise and trusting that collectively we are smarter, stronger, and more resilient than any single individual. Trust me, I have realized that the age of disruption isn't the end of leadership. It's a reinvention. It's an opportunity to redefine what it means to lead and to show the world that true leadership lies not in wielding power, but in sharing it. And maybe, just maybe, that's how we build a future that's not just sustainable, but worth sustaining. So my 2 cents.
For coming out with this moving story, but is resonating with what Miha said before. And please do stay in active listening mode until the end. However, now I see that Alexander Laszlo posed the question, would be able, Gloria, that can Laszlo place the question himself, or shall we read the question? Alexander, would you like to join and to ask to Miha?
I just had a quick question. Wonderful comments from our keynote listener, Sanchita. Thank you so much for that. And very inspirational presentation from Miha. Thank you so much. I'm going to get your book right away. And I wanted to ask if there's a distinction to be made in your framing of post-heroic leadership between the aspiration to become a change agent, you talk about becoming a change agent, and the aspiration to become a game changer. And I think maybe there is a distinction between being a change agent and being a game changer, and which is more relevant to post-heroic leadership, which is more needed today? These are my questions.
Thank you. Miha, please.
Okay, thank you very much for your kind words, Alexander. Really, I'm flattered, and probably it's not totally deserved. I'm gonna attempt to providing you an answer about it. So, in my humble understanding, it is about the scale and the level at which change is happening, the distinction between game changing and change agency, right? So, as a mechanics people that are after societal, large-scale, long-term change, including many of you here, are change agents that are aiming to reach out to a broader collectives of humans and even non-human, let's say, entities. While change agents, most of the time, the way I approach them when working with people in organizations would be satisfied if they are able to move something within the frame of an organization over the course of a period, implement or introduce certain strategy. Now, knowing how much of the resources actually are there in the organizations, and how much of an effect it has on families, let's say, of these people that are employed in these organizations, and on customers, on broader societies, and so on, I dare to say that also people that are doing change in organizations are also when there's a critical mass, they would be also game changers. We just have to be a little patient some time, and again observe how people stand on each other's shoulders. Then we tend to see from distance, we tend to see also larger shifts. I hope that answers your question rather than confuses my point.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Alexander and Miha. I would suggest that we go further, because we have a very exciting topics in front of us. Now, leadership is not just about the individuals, it is also about the systems. And one of, for my opinion, of better examples or attempts of the collective decision-making is also European Union, regardless of what the world think about the Europe these days. But it is the territory where 27 different leaders in the European Council and the 27 different commissioners in the European Commission must make the decisions together. The public consultations are the part of the process, yet, of course, we do acknowledge we are far away from any optimal leadership model. Again, thank you to be with us. Laura, given with your experiences on multiple roles within the EU institutions, how do you see this collective leadership working? And in particular, from your recent working area about biodiversity, can leaders tackle climate and societal crises without the top-down control?
Thank you, Andrea, and thanks a lot, Miha and Sanchita, for the earlier comment. That was super interesting. So, I mean, the question here is on collective leadership. Indeed, the EU is a good example, and I will illustrate with a few examples how collective leadership is quite critical when it comes to addressing the bigger crisis and biodiversity that you mentioned, Andrea. I think the first reason why it's critical to have collective leadership is because basically we are at a time where we need to adapt existing institutions. It's very obvious from what we see. You can see in the newspaper every day, well, especially the past weeks, but literally every day, some tension on multilateralism. It's been going on for many years. And this is a sign that the world is changing and we need to have new institutions to adapt. And when it comes to collective leadership, the role is really for collective leadership to shape these new institutions. And here I would like to use the wise words of Jean Monnet, who was one of the founders of the European project. He said, "Nothing is possible without men, but nothing lasts without institutions." And the collective leadership is, I would say, the first step before we move to better and more effective institution tackling poly-crisis, and especially the climate crisis. I will give a few examples on how especially when it comes to climate finance, which is really my core expertise here, and development finance. I will give a few examples on how in Europe we had collective leadership at play, and why it was the best option. So one example is what happened with the European development architecture. So basically, there's been a debate for something like 5 years, typical EU debate where there's endless meetings wondering about various options, whether EU should have a European Development Bank to represent its interest on the geopolitical and with the COVID crisis, the answer to that question was actually we can't solve all the problems we are facing, especially now with COVID, with just one single institution. So let's rather have a stronger network, which was then called the Team Europe approach, and have EU institutions, member state institutions, IFIs, international finance institutions work together and deliver all together, with not one claiming they can do it all. That Team Europe approach was then followed on with the obviously with the war, the invasion in Ukraine in 22. That was also an effective response from the EU, and other crises that came around the same period, and which is now the Team Europe approach is still now effective. It's still, I mean, Shita put it well when she said things can get messy when there's no dedicated assigned leader, but in the end it's much more powerful than anything the EU has done on the development finance front for quite some time. And clearly there was a recognition, especially on the question of climate and biodiversity, that in any case not one single institution would do the job. And it is required, given the scale needed of the action, it is required to have a collective leadership rather than one leader. Another example I'm thinking of is, so the EU is part of it, but this is a broader issue of climate finance for developing countries. So basically related to the COP process. So as you might know, a central question in the COP process is how much the developing countries for their green transition. And in 2009, there was an agreement that 100 billion dollar annually should be transferred to developing countries by 2020. And more recently, last year in 2024, the COP29 participants committed to tripling that amount to 300 billion dollar annually by 2035. And what is remarkable and important to know is that this level of $100 billion of transfer was not reached in 2020. In fact, it was reached 2 years later. So with a 2-year delay, which was still better than what the OECD, which is the one tracking these transfers, which is better than what the OECD had predicted initially, but still late. And when you look at the recommendation of could be scaled up and how we're going to reach this $300 billion per year, which sounds huge. It's really about transforming the international institutions, and more specifically the multilateral development banks, so that they focus much more on mobilization of private finance, for example. And today, very concretely, these institutions, they are not equipped, they are not fully dedicated to mobilize private finance. That's not how they've been structured. They've been structured in a very top-down approach where basically their shareholders, being the states, have some policy priorities that they want to finance, and this money is used for these priorities. If the model now of climate finance involve leveraging private finance, having public and private sector working much more together, that's obviously something top down. And one aspect very concretely, when you look at what needs to be done for these MDBs to work much more efficiently and with the private sector and mobilize private finance, the first and foremost is transparency and disclosure on how and what they exactly mobilize as finance. And on that, there's been an amazing work done by Publish What You Fund, which is an NGO. And they've been literally tracking MDBs and DFIs and all the development finance community for years, and publishing rankings on transparency and disclosure to show that really that needs to happen. And from a pure market financial perspective, if you are a private investor willing to be mobilized by an MDB, you actually need transparency and disclosure. That's probably the first step to get into an investment. That's another example I have where really it's not just the states owning the MDB that will decide how these entities will evolve, but rather there's a collection of stakeholders that need to shape this agenda. And I will finish with one last example, which is where we are right now, Andrea, on InvestEU, and it's all more on climate finance and when it comes to more developed markets. So how do we finance climate solutions in Europe at scale? And today, if you look at the European Union discussion on the next budget, for example, on how we're going to finance the green transition, how to balance it with other massive priorities like defense, competitiveness, etc. So basically, if you look at this discussion, they are all all these debates and ideas on how to finance the green transition that come down to one thing. And this one thing is that the current financial system is not fit for purpose. And then we need to create new investment vehicles, new models, new mechanisms to allow the industry, the investors, and governments to cooperate much more closely than they've done in the past. So there are, when I say the existing financial system is not fit for purpose, I'm not going to dive into the technicalities of that. But basically, the financial system today has not been done to finance a huge green transition of entire industries, especially in Europe, where it's banks leading the financial system, basically. So, and I will finish on a note about the fact that leadership, where it's been. You can see that the question of climate and biodiversity is far too complex to be tackled by one institution or in a top-down approach. The other reason I strongly believe we need to be careful with a top-down approach when it comes to climate and biodiversity is well, basically what we are going through right now, which is a huge backlash we get on this picture where the climate change and climate crisis is a matter, it's an agenda for the elite supported by a few scientists. And when people work to find climate solutions, they actually work against the people. That's a little bit the narrative of Trump, the narrative of extreme right in France. We had huge riots in Europe, extremely angry at biodiversity or climate representative, notably in France. And that is a very dangerous trend. And basically, we need to be in a mode where we can involve all sorts of communities into the transition on climate, and not have it as a topic only for experts, and certainly not for the elite only. So and eventually we should use formulas where we involve the whole of society, and people can see that we are all in the same boat, or rather the same planet on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for coming. This really fascinating insight about even of these days. You know, we are not ever closer to a huge challenges that we face in the planet, but when you try to do, the people are actually against. So listening to Miha at the beginning, he talked about this cognitive unconsciousness, also regarding the leadership. So I assume that this is the part that they cannot embrace, they cannot understand the threats that we are actually living these days. But Laura, a short question, if I may. You mentioned the COP, and we know at the COP, what was this, 2016, the Paris COP, how many world leaders and the countries signed the agreement. But if you see these days, so this is some kind of the leadership. But if we check the scoreboard today, not even one action on the list has been executed. And when I checked the last time, it was like 50% that has been on the track. Some of them, the actions are unreachable at all. So what is your personal opinion? Because I know that you're following all the COPs after that. Why this collective leadership didn't show any result at all?
Well, I think it's a bit far-fetched to say that that hasn't produced results. I would have agreed with you before 22. I mean, especially because I'm tracking the climate finance question that I mentioned earlier, and clearly this $100 billion promise to developing countries was not met until 22. But now it is, and in fact, useful regardless of how many KPIs have been actually delivered. It's more the journey and the process where, first of all, it puts pressure on the members of the COP, on the UN members to find solution. And on climate finance, that's a very obvious one. When in 2020 we realized that numbers were not there and the transfer were not where they should be. There's been a huge, acceleration. For example, on climate adaptation, we were nowhere in 2020, 21, and there was a huge increase in 2022, 2023. So I don't think that's not providing results. It just comes with a huge frustration, I think. The frustration that you're never gonna have a perfect COP. It's just impossible. And even when you say about the climate COP, the ones which are less advertised as one on the desertification, for example, and the biodiversity COP, the results are even more wishy-washy, I would say, if you look at the nitty-gritty of the agreements. But just the fact that there's an actual place where everybody can throw even just their frustration on the topic and throw their demands and throw their position, I think it's something we have to preserve. And I guess the challenge is how we go to the next level where there's an actual institutional system and it's just not a reunion of states in every 3 years that can easily be disrupted by, the US election like we see today. Or that to me on the climate change is the huge risk of this kind of process. The fact that it's almost like temporary compared to what it should be, given the urgency of the situation.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you very much. And now let's move from institutional leadership to the grassroots leadership. We turn to one of the most fascinating real-world examples of the post-heroic leadership, the Serbian student protest. This is a case where leadership truly exists without a single figure, where collective decision-making and the system demands drive the movement. So I welcome Natasha Herer and Natalia Petrovic. The first, Natasha, could you please provide us a short and a brief before we go deeper with some questions from Natalia?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everybody. So I was choosing to make this wrap up, and I was actually writing my speech that in this shortest time that I'm telling you the most, and then afterwards Natalia will have these really insights from the students' part. There are no big changes without big efforts. There are no big changes without new rules, creativity, and determination. Big changes do not happen by themselves, evolutionary, by growing one system into another. They happen through discontinuity, breaking shackles, and establishing new relationships. These are the words of Zoran Đinđić, the Prime Minister of Serbia, who was a professor of philosophy by profession, killed on this day in 2003. Serbia is currently at a major turning point. More than 4 months have passed since the tragedy that happened in Novi Sad, when the canopy at the railway station fell and killed 15 people, and the 2 people who survived are permanently disabled. The cause of the tragedy is incompetence and corruption. Since November 1st, 2024, Serbia has not calmed down. Out of sadness and anger, the students of the, of the university proved to be the most determined and ready to establish this continuity, break shackles, and establish new relationships. They started their activity with blockades of all faculties in the country, which started at the end of November. They established the plenum as the governing body, direct democracy in action. For me, as a citizen and mother of 2 students, the biggest impression is the following. First, 15 minutes of silence honoring the victims at the railway station in the period 11:52 to 12:07. The beginning of the silence is the time when the tragedy happened. Silence entered in the public dialogue. Silence is very powerful. Ask from people to stop and be with him or herself for those 15 minutes. Second, on the eve of Novi Sad City Day on February 1st, the first march of students from Belgrade to Novi Sad, 80 kilometers, took place. Passing through smaller towns on their way, the locals welcomed them as cards for students. People cry and hug them. Since then, every week, more than 300 protests are organized in smaller cities and villages all around the Serbia. The big protests have been organized every 2 weeks, February 15 in Kragujevac, central Serbia, March 1st in Niš, southern Serbia. On Saturday, upcoming March 15, there is a protest in Belgrade, the capital. Walking of students through small places removes the media darkness and gives people a long-forgotten sense of connection. New relationships are established. Society is awakened. Students created new golden threads of solidarity between people. 3. They think strategically. They are creative, witty, calm, and resist tremendous. They know how to communicate. They stick to their demands, which is why they started the blockades. They gained great trust and respect among citizens. 4th, they have no leader. Someone else comes to every public performance they are invited to. In the end, I would just broaden my view of the present world by looking at the iron hands of the current political and economic system that is still dominant. We see that today's leaders are living in the conceited greatness, focused on their own interests and the interests of their closest associates. They think that the set of things they have imposed will last forever. They won't. Just look back 10 years. As if 2 centuries had passed. Nothing is the same anymore. New relationships and new rules of a paradigm shift. The responsibility of rethinking people is enormous. It creates urge for engagement, calls for action. Students from Serbia seem to know the codes of the new world.
Thank you, Natasha. Now, Natalia, going towards you. So I was impressed reading, I think it was in The Economist. They compared your protest to the revolution that happened in Paris in '68. And they started with a big difference between how you are organized and how they have been organized. But the catchy sentence has been about behind that 60s revolution, a lot of demolished cars, chaos existed on the streets. Behind your protest, you're cleaning the streets like last 2-3 hours of the protest, so that showing that you love the place. This is your home, this is your community. You clean it. And secondly, I'm fascinating because we're talking about a generation that we as the parents has been adapted. You will be able to survive, to cross the road because you have been online all the time. You are, the gaming generation. You are sleeping with the phones, and now you're teaching us about the collective leadership. So Natalia, please share some insights how this is possible without the central leader role.
Pleasure to be here and to talk in the name of the students in blockades in Novi Sad and in Serbia. So I'm a delegate of the PR team of the Faculty of Philosophy. The FFUNS is Faculty of Philosophy of the University of Novi Sad. So basically, I would like to go back to what you said, that there is no violence, and that we clean up the streets and stuff like that after our protests. A great thing that has come out, one of the great things that has come out of these protests is that we are taking the narrative back into our own hands, and not just in the hands of the students, but in the hands of citizens. So I think the ruling party and our president, they use so much propaganda that, the state, it is me, from, a couple of centuries back, way back. They have been, comparing themselves to the state. And now we have taken back our flag, and we wear it with so much pride, and the citizens, everyone does it. We all say we are just becoming the patriots that were, hidden. They are coming out because we love our country, and we are doing this because we love it, because we want to stay here, because we are working so that our future is livable here, not just for us, but for the future generations as well. And I know that it was very unexpected from our generation. I know I'm an activist, and before this, a couple of years back, I know that we couldn't get the students to participate in anything, to do anything, And now this has been a huge surprise for me too. I have no idea what happened. I hope that one day some scientists will be able to, tell us why this happened. But the solidarity and the mutual respect and love that we have for each other, it has just, come to light. It was always in us, and it's nothing new, I think. So the reason why these blockades even started, the first faculty that was blocked was the Faculty of Drama Arts in Belgrade. And it was because they were silently and peacefully protesting. So Natasha mentioned the 15 minutes of silence for the people who died in the collapse of the canopy. So while the students were just peacefully being silent on the street for 15 minutes. Some politicians, I would say, from the ruling party came, and they were violent. They beat someone. They beat our colleagues of the Faculty of Drama Arts, and they were the first faculty to enter the blockades, and then a few faculties of the University of Belgrade and Faculty of Philosophy was the first one to enter the blockades. We were the first one to block ourselves in Novi Sad, and then the whole University of Novi Sad, Niš, Kragujevac, everyone is in blockades. So basically, how we maintain this decentralization is, I think, the main mechanism for that, even though I think it may sound kind of weird, is our willingness for that. It came kind of spontaneously, but we are aware that that is the nature of our movement for the betterment of it. So basically, there is no going back, and we do not feel the need for a central figure, for one person to be telling us all what to do. I think that this is the first time that we have experienced some kind of, power, that every single voice on a faculty in a university, every voice, every person has the power. They have the right to say what they think, and to, make a decision, to participate in decision making, to criticize, to praise something that they like, and etc. Everything that comes with that. So the main body, as mentioned, and mechanism for making decisions, getting answers and solutions, and for internal and external stuff is plenum. Plenum is the place where everyone can come and express their opinion. I think it was first used in the blockades of faculties in Zagreb in 2009, I think. And we have taken that model and changed it up a bit. And I think this is the first time that in the history of Serbia, there is this type of direct democracy. And I think that this changes everything, literally everything. I think that this implicitly changed and rewired the brain of every single student or professor that is a part of these blockades. Because now we have learned not to just listen to one person. We have learned how much it matters for us to be present, to say what we think, to participate. So every single faculty, how we the machine, how the machine works, every single faculty has teams, and each team ensures that a certain job gets done. Most of the teams also have a team that unites them on the university level, and that is where the decisions that are of value for the whole university are made. So, for example, some of the teams are PR team, team for street actions, creative team, monitors or stewards during the protest, or just for the faculty. And of course, there is the Uniplenum that is called kind of differently in Belgrade, but basically that is a place where delegates from each faculty come. They bring the decisions that was made on the faculty plenum, and they ratify it or not if 50% or if more than 50% of the faculties are for a decision or against. So basically everything is very democratic, and the role of the Uniplenum is just to literally just for the delegates to bring what was said on the faculty plenum. So the uni plenum isn't like more powerful than the faculty plenum. The faculty plenum actually is the most powerful body for decision making and everything else. So now I would like to say something about the advantages of this this model of functioning. So as I said, I think that now from now on, everything will be different, literally. And I think that none of us can now imagine even ourselves in the future in some companies, organizations, or something like that, where we won't want for every single person to have a voice and say what they want and participate in the decision making. But besides that, I think that something that is very maybe weird for people, but I think even our families are starting to accept it, is that we have a unique way of communicating during plenums, where if we agree with something, we will do the jazz hands, or like that is the applause for people who are deaf. Or if we don't agree with something, then we just bring our hands like this or like this. And then when we raise our hands, there are different types of raising our hands. If we want to say something, if we have a direct replica to someone, or this is the technical. So we have a joke like two technicals, which is basically you have advantage, and it's just if you have like fast information for something that would shorten the discussion or anything similar, or just basically let's open the window or stuff like that. But some of the disadvantages, and there are a few, is that we have a problem that I would say for the Faculty of Philosophy personally, we have plenums at 6 p.m. and sometimes those plenums last really long because we want everyone to have a chance to say their opinion, even though that we have a rule book and we have limited the discussions to 15 minutes. Everyone has a max of, I think, 2 minutes to say something. And at the end of those 15 minutes, we vote whether we want the discussion to continue. Basically, sometimes the discussion lasts too long. And the main problem is that we do not have water from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m., which is a huge problem. So sometimes people leave early or, do not come. This has been happening recently because we cannot take a shower, brush our teeth. We can, but it's harder. We have to use bottles. So yeah, that's that is something. I don't think that we have had any like bigger issues like hate speech or something like that. Everyone comes to the faculty and knows how to, behave. Let's say it like that. And so
Natalia,
how we
may I jump into with two short questions?
Of course.
It is fascinating. I haven't had the understanding of how interesting is the organization of that behind. But we heard Miha's presentation at the beginning about the post-heroic leadership. Do you find, from what he was talking, a lot of similarities towards how you are organized? What are maybe those key things? And linked to this question, Miha also emphasized, and this is the fact, demographical fact, we have so and so high percentage of the narcissistic people, of the ego trips, as we said in the management. And I cannot imagine that this kind of the people would not come to the plenums and to inside of the organization. So how do you behave? What you do with these people?
Thank you so much for the questions. I have actually written down like a sentence from Miha's presentation that I think is very plenum-like, actually blockade-like. So proactive leadership, moderating discussions and taking responsibility, not independent decision-making, etc. What is important is that we do not have leaders, we only have moderators. I think that word kind of stuck with me. So each meeting or plenum has a moderator, and that's it. That is, even the moderator, it can, they can vote, but their role is to keep the discussion civilized and to, call out people who raise their hands and to kind of know what they are talking about, because we have we have different themes, the points and subjects that we talk about during plenums, decisions that need to be made, so they need to keep track with everything, how the discussion is going, and whether there are some good things that we can vote for. So that's it. But it is very, and I was kind of surprised when Miha was talking, because it's very actually similar to the way we work, the way we function. And it was kind of weird to me, because I didn't know that people are interested into this topic. And another another reason why it was weird for me is because this is very spontaneous. Like, we had no idea. We did use the Bloka na Kuharica, so basically a handbook that was made by students who blocked the faculties in Zagreb. It helped us a lot, but even we changed a lot of things, and now we function in a way that we are okay with it, so everything is voted for. And yeah, that was very, very interesting to me. And the second question, could you please repeat? I have lost it
What
now.
do you do when the people, narcissistic people, or the people with some ego agenda would appear? They do appear, I assume, So how do you behave? How you not control, but what you do with these people?
So we do have sanctions for certain types of behaviors that are not acceptable in plenums and on the faculty itself. But I would say that we did not have a lot of those elements, those people who tried to take everything into their own hands. And if they did show signs of it, I can assure you that with an amphitheater full of like 200 students, or at least 100 students at plenums, we can kind of shut them down and, see what's going on, and then just get back to what we were doing and get back to the way that we want to function. So in none of the teams, or especially not the whole faculty of university, we do not have a leader. We do not have like a main person in any of the teams. We are all equal, and we all have the same right to make decisions, to say something. And yeah, that's it. We do not do not have anyone on any level who is more important than any other person. And I think that that is very important, and I think that that is very weird, because even in the organizations that I was in, when we had teams where we were all equal, we always had that one person that had to cut the knot and was like, yeah, so this is what we're going to do or not. Even in crisis situations, we do not have that. And in one way or another, we kind of inspect the how the students feel about a subject or a protest or something. We have a WhatsApp group. That's the way we communicate. Some faculties use Telegram or something like that. But it is always the decision is always made by the majority, never the minority. And I think that is very important, because we have shown that it is possible. And now you sent me some questions, and I was kind of, reading through them, talking about them. And there is something very important that I wanted to say. So the last one was about decentralized leadership beyond these blockades and in general, and whether I think that it is possible, and I absolutely do. And I really hope that this will become something that we will use more, because even now we were even a way back, I think like 2 months. We're now 3 months into blockades. 2 months ago, we were talking about, okay, how can we implement plenums after these blockades into like the functioning of the faculty? So our parliament is also corrupted. We have this summer, students have blocked the rectorate because they have tried to, steal the elections, and we have one list on the elections because the system, the organization that is there is corrupted. So they made the system like that, so that they benefit from it and that no one else can go on the election, because you need an absurd amount of like signatures from students, so that you can go. And I don't want to talk to you about that, but it's corrupted. We have it everywhere, in every single pore of our country. So actually, in the Serbia's legal system, there is something that is basically a plenum for citizens, but I don't think that it's been used much, maybe in some villages or towns or something like that. And it's called a civic assembly. And it can even be held at the level of one street in a city or village, where the citizens come together and talk about decision that they want to make, or something that they want to change about their neighborhood, etc. So it can be made on a level as small as that, or a smaller or a bigger level. And I think that the students in blockades in Belgrade already started talking about this. They have a post about it on social media. And I think that we need to encourage citizens to take action and explore their rights, so they can influence the decision and policy making in Serbia. Serbia is a country with almost non-existent democracy. So that is a great way how we can, for at least a small part, take action and take the power into our own hands. Now, we know that the whole system is corrupted, and that the ruling party, the government, can always find a way how they can, discourage citizens or not do anything about a certain thing that the citizens want done. Or, for example, I don't know, a law that they want to be made and stuff like that. But even from the beginning of these protests, like from the 1st of November and then 5th of November, when the first big protest in Novi Sad happened, as Natasha said, Serbia hasn't stopped. And I don't think that it will happen. And the reason why Serbia's the student movement is so successful here is because we are kind of in between what the ruling party, the narrative they have been sending, and what the citizens want because of it. I know this may sound weird, but let me explain. So basically, the word politics has been ruled as a really, shameful word. And, if you want to be a politician or something, then you must be, out of your mind or something like that. And the politics has been reserved for the elites, and the elite is the ruling party, the Serbian Progressive Party. But we, as students in blockades, have started to change the narrative. So how we the same as how we changed the narrative with the Serbian flag and the show that it's not a shame to be proud of our country and to be invested in changing something here and for the betterment of our future. Now we are showing the citizens that we can exist and be a movement without the involvement of the political parties. So we do not have anything to do with any political parties, the opposition, no one, especially not the ruling party, of course. But we are aware and we are very open about the fact that what we are doing, our demands are political. We are political. Every single citizen is political, and everything that is around us is politics. So we are explaining to the citizens that, okay, you think the opposition is bad. We don't care about the opposition. We have nothing to do with them. But we are working in politics because what we are demanding is, at the end of the day, for the people who are in the government, for like one of the demands of the university in Novi Sad is that the now ex-premier Miloš Vučević, and for the mayor of Novi Sad, Milan Đurić, to quit. And they did, but our demand is for them to quit and for them to be criminally convicted because they are, in a way, responsible for the fall of the canopy. So with that, a huge changes come. And so everything is politics. And I really hope, by the way, today is, yeah.
No, sorry to interrupt you. Keep your thought. But what I'm hearing you is the first, it is fascinating. I would listen you for next 2 hours. I'm super excited and super humble and grateful to your generation. You're a living clap to that you are fighting for democracy, actually. You are not like what we see this extremist right all around the world, but you're fighting for democracy to stay. But what you're saying with this politics, I would refer again to Miha. He named it as responsibility. Another term would be accountability. So basically that we are not exporting the responsibility of our society, community to somebody else, to these politicians, but that we need to take and co-create the action. Another, if you can answer really very shortly, because I need to apologize for another two esteemed panelists that are waiting. There is a question from the audience. Natalia, how do you react to some critical situation that require a quick reactions and where you have this decentralized voting which might take too long to work in a time. So how do you react in such a situation? Let's say you need to decide something within 30 minutes, this is impossible then to have the whole system. So what do you do?
Yes, I understand. That is a very good question. So we have had several situations. I think one of them was when our colleague's jaw was broken by, so she was putting on stickers around the town, and someone from the office of one of the offices of the Serbian Progressive Party came out and broke her jaw. And that's tomorrow we had a protest, and that was a very, critical situation, and we needed to think fast. I think that we are every day we're working towards bettering our functioning and to getting some rule books about how to behave in certain situations, about what the delegates on the Uniplenum can do and can't do, and what every team is responsible for, and what their job is. So I don't think that we have that we still have a body that is for critical situations like that. So in this case, they held like a uniplenum where some people discussed about what can be done and what can't be done. I think it depends on the situation. Sometimes we just need to react fastly in the media and to post something on the social media or contact someone from the media, and that's what the PR team has the autonomy for. Or if there is like a quick protest or something, the street actions team, they also have the autonomy for that. So each team has a rule book and they have a certain amount of autonomy to them, so they can make some quick decisions that do not need to go through plenum. So our plenums would last 20 hours if every single thing that needs to be decided on would have to go there. So usually teams do have a certain amount of autonomy to them, and some faculties function differently. They have a few people that they trust that can, sense what the students are feeling and then make a decision based on that. Or some have a quick plenum. I mean, plenum does not have a quorum, so how many people are there that can be a plenum? We do have some ways of calling for like a plenum that needs to be fast. So yeah, it depends from the faculty to faculty and situation to situation, but we do deal with that, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. But I don't think that there were any incidents on our part, and I think that besides
So, Natalia, I
anything.
hear that you are learning and you have a big trust, and the trust is important segment of the leadership. So thank you. Sorry to interrupt you again, but we are really behind the schedule, and I am looking forward also for your maybe a written article for the book that will be published at the end of the year, so that everybody around the world will be able to learn from what you're doing. Thank you both, Natasha, and thank you, Natalia, very much. And now I would like to go towards a more technical part of the word. Mitja Yermol, welcome again, and happy to have you, such AI expert, with us. Mitja, what will AI bring to the leadership? Will AI replace or augment leadership roles? So what is your perspective?
So thank you, Andrea, for having me here. Colleagues, thank you again for very, very interesting presentations and talks. So it quite resonates to what I'm gonna say. I wanna tell you some stuff that we are working on, and actually how we see and where we see the role of something which is the AI in these days in the not just leadership but also the complete functioning of the society. So so it's not that, I mean, whatever I will say today is a speculation about AI, because this happens so fast that even us, we are deeply into this research and development. We don't really can handle all the stuff that is coming out every week. So every week is different. And if I would be having this talk like 3 years ago, it would be completely different than it is today, certainly. Now, if you look at the technical part of the models that humanity developed, there were several good examples about creating something which is distributed infrastructures to allow flexibility and robustness. And starting with the internet, actually, the internet was built up to allow the robustness of the system. And then if you go further on, then the blockchain came across, which again is about the decentralized system, and we're kind of a democracy in the space. And then today we are getting into this kind of a new era of technology, which is essentially and kind of a emerging behavior effect. So if you look at the AI in the past and AI today, it's about the emergence behavior. It's about we don't really know why these things are going so well and differently than any other technologies in the past. And usually when we talk about the AI, it's people are afraid because it's getting in all the subsystem spores of our lives. So we try to be reasonable and explain what these tools can do and what can help humans to behave better. And it's about support. It's not about replacement. I don't think that there will be a replacement, although, as I said, everything that I will say today is speculation. But those tools are very, very capable of doing the things that we hear today, and this is orchestration and moderation. And I will show you a little bit of one of the examples that actually goes into that direction. And I think that these are the capabilities that actually will help us to do things differently that we're doing today. So the rigid structure and stuff. I mean, there are two ways, of course. One is the technology, and the other one is the regulation. So if you look at the companies have to be flexible, have to be dynamic, have to adapt very easily, but then they have to play according to the rules. And the rules that we are setting up, it's like a long process. So whatever you do today with the legislation or the policies or even the curricula in the schools, it takes like several years before it happens. And so we have to rethink two things. So one is this kind of a leadership and moderation and orchestration, and the other one, of course, is how we will also change the existing model of setting up these policies, frameworks, and rules. So I would like to show you one of the examples that we are working on, and I will just share a screen, so it's slides, but I can show you sometime later in real life as well. So so can you see this slide, right?
Yes, now we can see.
Okay, so this is a kind of again, it's a infrastructure, is a platform with AI to do orchestration and moderation. This is a very good example. It's a very good example because it is about the rare diseases. So it's about understanding and handling rare diseases. As the name says, the rare disease is disease that affects roughly around from few hundreds to up to several thousands of kids, mostly is DNA based. And because it's so small, because the population is so small, there is no particular interest from any of the big pharma to actually tackle those things. And then what people are doing is there is one group of researchers here, there is, of course, concerned parents, and then one group of small companies that are doing some stuff on the other end, but altogether, they are just struggling. So having something which would be an environment on one side to collect all this first information, plus collect all these separate entities, individuals that are dispersed across the globe. And on the other hand, provide something which is a deep insight into what's going on. And this is what we are talking about. So environment that will allow any decision maker or any individual or any type of stakeholder to have better decision, to make better decisions because of the concrete information, concrete data. This is one of the cases. So here, if you think about that, here are likely around 6,000 plus rare diseases, and if you multiply 6,000 by several 10,000s of patients, then you have a critical mass. And since the mechanics behind is quite the same, immediately you will have this emerging behavior, emerging effect of collecting, putting all these efforts together in a kind of a coordinated way. So it's a very important coordinated way. Coordinated way is, since this technology can allow to also handle this kind of processes and provide insights and provide the outputs, which can be then taken out by the critical mass of either this kind of a environment, or students in Belgrade or Serbia, or students in Slovenia, whatever. This actually then provides a completely different environment to support a different type of leadership. So this is what we are doing. This is what we're experiencing in several areas. So this is just one of the observatories, just one of these kind of environments, and it certainly works pretty well. Now, there are, of course, issues. And if you look at the issues certainly about this type of the observatory, where they have personal data, even medical data, and you have to take care about this. So you collect all this information, then you process, and then you provide this information. And then usually the problem with these tools is about trust, and it's about how do you take care about the bias. So if this would be an environment for shared leadership, we will have the same problem, the same issues that we have to address. Now, technically, this is not a problem, right? So I will just show you how we did that. So when you collect the data, and those are several elements that are important to consider when you're doing this. So if this would be, let's say, a shared leadership between European countries, European governments, still the same issues would have to be tackled. So about the informed consent, privacy, transparency, data sharing, blah, blah, blah. Technically, we are quite good of taking care about those. So you see, so I colored the different types of domains. So everything that is in green, we handled pretty well. Everything that is in yellow, we are quite good, but the red things we are not really addressing yet. Technically, this is okay. So the collection of the information, collection data is okay. As well, on the other end, so the next part is when you do the processing. So technically, we are quite good on taking care about processing. So that will be non-biased, that will be open, that will be transparent, that will be robust, and so on. The only issue that we have problem as humans are not machines, but actually then the next stage, which is interpretation. And this is where we humans do things. And you cannot really address those things with interpretation in the sense that you would say, here are the solutions that will take care about the bias and take care about the transparency and being neutral. It's about our own moral values, our own system of how we actually grown up, how we are processing and assessing information. If you look at, for example, Natalia, she's a younger generation now. They grew up in a different environment that we grew up. For them, the media is a different type of the media that we understand as the media. And our generation, whatever there was there in media, we thought this was 100% true, no question. It's not like this. And even if you look at today, it's really about us. So the generation that Natalia is more or less fighting against, I'm not saying that you're fighting, but you're protesting against, is a generation that grew up in a different context, in a different environment, and still thinks that something which is a pyramid and the rule and the boss that who decides and everybody has to obey is the right and the proper leader. Now, the issue for today is that because of these technologies developing so fast, so this was an assessment of last year. So last year presentation, I have this slide showing how much do you need to know about AI when you are tackling with these technologies. It is getting simpler and simpler for anyone to use. So that was last year, and this was this year. So if you look at the software development expertise and AI expertise needed to tackle all these different type of pillars, that was last year, this is this year. And this goes further on. So more or less, things would be available for anyone to use, which is a good thing, but it's also a threat. So if you just imagine that today anyone can construct any type of fictional stories, any type of deep fakes, any type of messages going through social media that Natalia is using as well. And it is easy with the AI because you don't need to know much about the program. You just prompt, you just discuss, you just construct. And then you combine those to the social media, which, it's massive and there is no regulation anymore. Everything is like you can put anything you want on the social media, then more or less destruct the world. Then instead of having the AI tool, you will have the kind of a bomb. So this is the things that we are discussing about. It's a lot of discussion. It's a lot of research as well. And of course, we are asking several questions which goes into that direction, and particularly those one. So are we really, as a humanity, really ready because of, as I said, on one side, because of this ease, because on the other end is a kind of a bubble, and on the third end is a generational change. Certainly, it's a generational change. The kids or the students like Natalia today. I have my kids are like your age, Natalia. So, and what they do when they're studying playing games and studying together. In parallel. That's for me. This is impossible. You have to be concentrated. You have to have a book. You have to list it through. You have to read it through. So it's impossible. It's different, and you are different. And since you are different, you have the ability to construct something which is a different type of leadership. I'm not sure if this would be, when we always said, like my father was telling me when I was a student, he said to me, well, this is now, but when you will grow up, you will see. This was, my lessons learned for my father. And it's a bit about you see when you grow up, you see a different type of world. And then it's quite difficult to change things if you don't have really mechanisms to do it. And this is why I said that the mechanisms that we have to rethink about how we construct policies, regulations, laws, and how we follow these regulations, policies, and laws in this dynamic world. It's not just about having a beautiful model and then leaders with the moral compass. It's something really about how the system that we are running, how the subsystems in the country that essentially has been set up in whatever 17th century are not suitable anymore for what we are talking about here. But AI is something that brings an opportunity, because now it gets into something which is this big, huge, large language models into something which will be a distributed agent infrastructures with personal agents, personal models that will interact with each other. So again, it's a kind of a robustness coming across, because it couldn't be done in a way that this would be a centralized system. It's impossible. It will go down, it will dissolve. And this would be an opportunity to actually use those types of tools, which are not really tools anymore. It's a little bit more than just a tool, in order to support something which will be a different type of leadership. And hopefully this would then, of course, resonate with everything that we are seeing today, because this, for me, this is a learning curve. So what we are seeing today with the world politics, with the geopolitics, it's a learning curve for humanity. I think that we had to experience this to see what actually that means and what are the consequences. It's just about how far we go into that direction. But essentially, AI, it's not something that we will have to be afraid of. It's something which is an interesting, again, tool with brackets. We are really talking about not tool anymore, about something else. And that this can certainly bring quite a lot of possibilities, value. Still, we have to be conscious about all the potential drawbacks and all the potential misuses of this technology as well.
Thank you very much, Mitya. The perspective that some of us do have some resistance, but it is unavoidable and is part. And talking to you a few times even can bring some democratical decisions that we are not able as the humans to take. But a very short question, and for a very short answer, there are a lot of announcements on the LinkedIn from the different organizations, different companies, that they will introduce a board member, the one place in the board for the AI. Do you see the sense? Do you see that we are ready for that? Is this like AI washing, because 90% of some news coming from the corporates is marketing purpose? But just a very brief answer for this question.
Well, very briefly, it will be like this. So when I was a kid, I went to look for I was there in the libraries all the time looking for books. And then my wish was, can you imagine the world when all the books would be accessible from one point? And then the web came across. And I said, wow, nice. And then next wish was, what would be if I could have the option to talk to all the experts and all the knowledge, human knowledge, concentrated in one thing, how nice would that be? And we are here. So certainly something which is AI that provide this concentrated, generated know-how of all humanity in the history into sensible answers, sensible suggestions, answers. And then you can go, of course, again to more like technical parts, which is trends and then predictions and stuff. This is something which is very useful. Now, if this would be a legal person sitting on the board and having a voting rights as well, that's a different issue. That's a different issue, because the fact is that in all this large language model today, there are quite a lot of inconsistencies, not because of imagination of AI creating these results, but because there are intentionally inserted viruses inside the LLMs, so kind of a sleeping agents that we have to take care about, and we don't know how to. So still, there are quite a lot of backdoors in these systems, and nobody really knows how clean they are and how trustable they could be in all respects, in particularly if this is the decision function. So if you have an advisor in the board, like AI, that could provide the advice on whatever we are discussing, but not having a voting right, then that would probably make sense. Okay. Having a voting right, that would be a kind of a that'd be strange. It would be strange.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mitya, for this. Now we are well behind the planet schedule, and we have a short discussion with Marina. Marina, thank you for accepting the opportunity to speak on September 3rd, when I will curate exploring what it means to be a new leader, so that we can dive into your full presentation that you prepare for today. But for today, if you can maybe just share the things that the most resonate with you from today's panelist, what you will take with you into the tomorrow.
Yes, thank you so much. And I have another several months to prepare. And let me use this short time as a teaser for my presentation in September. So what I wanted to share that, first of all, everything what was shared by everybody highly resonated with my approach. And the main idea what I wanted to share with you, and I hope that I will do so in September, is that the core issue with the leadership is not in their sort of wrong, maybe in misunderstanding of the leadership. I think that the core problem is in the misconception of the perception of the worldview itself, because we all in business schools, in many universities, are taught that the good leader is a leader who can manage the system. And usually we understand that the system is sort of the mechanical structure, the closed structure, which could be predicted, which could be managed, which could be ruled to somehow, or maybe pushed forward if we are talking about some inspirational leadership or something. If we look at the leadership, at the very system, at any social system, as an ecosystem which is alive, which has not only the structure and processes, but also has its spirit, it has its own values and its own purpose. And in this case, we understand that ecosystem, in comparison to just closed system, is interconnectedness with the bigger systems. And speaking about Natalia's presentation about the protests and this absolutely wonderful experience, how young people can self-organize, it's precisely they see in this ecosystemic approach and ecosystemic leadership where each part understands that they are not the separate. They are the part of the bigger systems, and they are contributing to the bigger systems. They are not struggling for power. They are contributing for the prosperity of their country, because their movement is the part of their state ecosystem, country ecosystem. So that's the first. The second, if we are talking about the mechanical versus ecosystemic approach, I fully agree with Mitya that most of the important processes as planning, control, management, they could be very soon replaced by the AI. But what AI can't do, AI doesn't have moral reasoning. It doesn't have, it can't create something absolutely new. It can only compare and use some material which we have as a global database. And also AI can't see this ecosystemic vision. Yes, it can see the cause and consequence inside the system, but these unseen parallel some things which we can sense, but maybe can't even understand at this very time. This is what AI can't do. So I think that all the procedures, all the processes of leadership can be somehow at some time delegated to the AI. But what is about spiritual part, this sort of spiritual, not in terms of religious, but in terms of interconnectedness, understanding that this big living ecosystem is one organism, and we are contributing to the bigger prosperity of this bigger organism. So that's the main idea which the new ecosystemic leadership can bring and can do. And we as leaders are in charge of bringing the balance. If we are talking about the human body, for example, we know about homeostasis, about the balance which immune system is providing for our organism. The same is biosynthesis in the ecosystemic approach. So bringing this balance, taking care of all the parts of the ecosystem, bringing this ethical reasoning and spiritual guidance, providing this interconnectedness, understanding of wholeness, providing love, what was told about the post-heroic leadership as well. It's their capacities, it's their talent which cannot be delegated or somehow replaced by the AI. So I would love to say more about it, and I hope that I will have this opportunity next time. But I think that this bringing aliveness and bringing the sense of belonging and interconnectedness, it's the most important. We need to reinvent ourselves as leaders each day. It's not something predicted or predestinated or planned. It's about opening something new together and bringing this balance into the system, tackling with the various challenges from the environment, but not, again, telling people what to do, but inviting them into the conversation and being humble enough to listen to other people and to ask before act. So I think that that's the most.
Thank you so much, Marina, for this very nice closing words. I also learned a lot today not to invite so many amazing people at the same time, because then we are running out of the agenda, and my heart was broken to interrupt many among you, because I would be able to listen. But as we said, it was also a trigger for understanding Marina's depth and to be invited to the September's event. But before that, I would like to invite everybody to the next April's event. Mar, are you still with us? Would you like maybe to say one sentence about the April's event? Gloria, do you see if Mar is with us?
Yes, she is.
Thank you. Hello to all.
Hello, Mar.
Hello to all, and thank you so much. Just 1 minute, because I don't want to take more, and I was enjoying, and thank you so much. I was a keynote listener today as well. So just to make a very simple reflection, but that we need to move from political institutional leadership to new shapes of organizations. And in general, when we say that, we are talking about what is the political sector that is leading the process. So it's leading the process of change and innovation. And then when we talk about organization, we talk again the same institutions, the same organization, just to make some reforms. So my invitation is to see it from a new perspective. And now we have technology for that. And now we have a civil society commitment with a great commitment. And we see that in the social media, and we see it now that voluntary, we are here trying to get insight and be inspiring for all. So we need to take that passion and be emotionally intelligent to make it possible. Thank you so much.
Beautifully said. On which April it is your event, Mar?
It's in June.
It is in June. It's not now in April.
No, it's not in April. It's in June.
In June. Okay. We are all looking forward. I will be the active listener in that time. So thank you to all participants. Deep gratefulness to Marina to understand the situation. Thank you to everybody who was today. I'm sorry that we have been too long. Therefore, we just took the questions that has been posed over the system, but hope that you got very interesting insight, that you enjoyed the conversation. Thank you. Co-create the word, and see you next time. Bye-bye.